Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving into a topic that's surrounded by mystery and a little bit of fear, honestly. The dark web.
Yeah, it's got a kind of ominous ring to it, doesn't it?
It does. And there are so many stories and, movies about hackers and illegal activities. What's the reality?
Right. Well, first, we got to clear up some confusion. People often use the terms dark web and deep web interchangeably, but they're not the same thing.
Okay, so what's the difference?
Think of the internet like an ocean. The surface is what we see every day, the websites we visit, the social media we use.
Okay, I get it. That's the surface.
Right. Now, everything below the surface, that's the deep web. Things like your bank account info when you log in, a company's internal database, password-protected sites.
Just stuff that's not public.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not necessarily bad or dangerous, just not accessible to everyone.
Okay, so where does the dark web fit in?
The dark web is like a hidden cove tucked away in the depths of that deep web.
Okay. Getting a little spooky now.
Yeah, well, it's intentionally hidden, requiring special software to access it.
So you can't just stumble upon it.
Nope, you need the right tools. And that's where things like the Tor browser come in.
I've heard of Tor. It's supposed to make you anonymous online, right?
That's the idea. It basically bounces your internet traffic through a bunch of different servers all over the world, making it really hard to track your location or who you are.
So it's like a disguise for your computer.
Exactly. And that's why websites on the dark web have these weird, cryptic addresses ending in .onion. It's like their secret code.
So if I use Tor to visit a .onion site, am I automatically doing something illegal?
Not at all. Simply accessing the dark web is perfectly legal. It's like, walking into a library. You're not breaking the law by being there.
That's a relief. But I have to admit, when I hear dark web, my mind goes straight to all the shady stuff.
Yeah, it's got that reputation for a reason. There are definitely marketplaces where you can find illegal goods and services.
Like what kind of things are we talking about?
Drugs, weapons, stolen data. You name it, someone's probably trying to sell it.
Wow, so it really is like a hidden black market. But you're saying that's not all there is to it.
Right. It's important to remember that the dark web is a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or bad.
I guess that makes sense. So besides the illegal stuff, what else is happening on the dark web?
Well, for people living under oppressive regimes, it can be a lifeline for communication and accessing information that's censored by their governments.
So a place to speak freely without fear.
Exactly. Journalists also use it to communicate securely with sources, especially whistleblowers who might be in danger if their identity is revealed.
So there are definitely legitimate reasons to be there.
Yeah.
But isn't everything you do on the dark web totally anonymous?
That's a common misconception. While Tor and other tools offer a layer of anonymity, it's not foolproof.
What do you mean?
Well, if you're not careful, you can still leave traces of your activity. Maybe you slip up and reveal personal information, or you click on a malicious link.
So it takes a lot of know-how to truly stay anonymous.
Exactly. And even then, law enforcement agencies are getting better at tracking down criminals on the dark web. It's a constant cat and mouse game.
Okay, so anonymity isn't a guarantee. What about those illegal marketplaces we talked about? How do those even work?
Well, they actually operate a lot like regular e-commerce sites. They have seller ratings, customer reviews, even escrow services to protect buyers and sellers during transactions.
But they're using Bitcoin or something instead of regular money, right?
Yeah, cryptocurrency is the currency of choice on the dark web because it's harder to trace. But even with Bitcoin, people can still get caught.
You're right. We talked about Silk Road, that huge online drug marketplace.
Yeah, the FBI managed to shut it down and arrest its founder.
So even on the dark web, you're not above the law. It's a lot more complex than I thought.
It definitely is, and we've only just scratched the surface. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. So we've talked about, what the dark web is and how it works, but I'm still kind of wondering, why would anyone risk going there? It just seems so shady.
Yeah, it's kind of giving me like a bad feeling about this whole thing.
I get it, but for some people, the benefits outweigh those risks. Think about it this way. Imagine living in a country where you can't speak your mind, without fear of the government.
Right, where you can't say what you really think.
The dark web can be a place to connect with others who share your views, to access information that's censored in their countries.
So it's like a place for free speech, even if it's hidden.
Exactly. And it's not just about speaking out, it's about privacy too. We talked about the deep web containing sensitive information, right? Like our bank details.
Yeah.
Well, some people are really concerned about their online privacy in general. They use the dark web for everyday things like email, messaging, just to keep their conversations away from, prying eyes.
I can see that. So it's like an extra layer of protection.
Exactly. But then there's the flip side. The people using it for illegal stuff, it's hard to understand, why they take the risk.
You're like, what's the motivation there?
Well, honestly, for some people, it's the thrill, the danger. They think they can get away with things they could never do in the real world.
So it's like the Wild West of the internet.
Yeah, kind of. But just like the real Wild West, there are consequences.
Right, remember Silk Road?
Exactly. Even with anonymity, you're not above the law. But it's important to remember that the dark web isn't just criminals and, thrill seekers. Some people use it for really ethical reasons.
Really? Like what?
Think about whistleblowers. People who see something wrong happening, in their company, in the government, wherever, they often face huge risks if they speak out.
Right, they could lose their jobs or worse.
Exactly. The dark web gives them a way to share information anonymously.
So they can get the truth out there without putting themselves in danger.
Right. There's this website called SecureDrop. Whistleblowers can send documents, tips to news organizations without revealing their identity.
Wow, that's pretty incredible.
It is. It's a powerful tool for accountability, fighting corruption.
So we've got people looking for freedom, people trying to stay private, criminals, whistleblowers. It seems like everyone's on the dark web.
It's a mixed bag for sure.
Yeah.
But even if you never go there yourself, knowing about it is important. It impacts all of us.
How so?
Think about data breaches, all those passwords, credit card numbers, all that personal information stolen. It often ends up for sale on the dark web.
So even if I'm not on the dark web, my information could be.
It's a possibility. That's why it's so important to protect our information online. Strong passwords, being careful about links, keeping software up to date.
Yeah.
The basics.
Right, good digital hygiene.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we've talked about why people use the dark web, but what about the people who create and run these websites?
That's a great question. And it's one that, a lot of people are trying to answer. Some are skilled programmers and techies drawn to the challenge of building in this hidden space.
So like a digital frontier.
In a way, yeah. Others are in it for the money, seeing the dark web as a way to profit from illegal activities.
So you've got idealists and criminals. Seems to be a theme here.
It does, doesn't it? But there's also this whole hidden community behind the dark web with their own rules, hierarchies.
It's like a society operating in the shadows.
Exactly. Some sites are run by individuals while others are part of big organizations, with complex structures. It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it.
It is.
Huh.
But if it's so hidden, how do law enforcement agencies even find these illegal operations?
It's a constant cat-and-mouse game. Agencies like the FBI use all sorts of sophisticated techniques to try to track down illegal activity. Sometimes they try to infiltrate marketplaces, monitor online communication, even set up traps.
It sounds like something out of a spy movie.
It kind of is. And just like in the movies, the criminals are always trying to stay one step ahead, using encryption, constantly changing tactics.
So it's a never-ending battle.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And it's only going to get more intense as technology evolves. Think about AI, artificial intelligence.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It could be used to create deepfakes, fake videos that look totally real, spread misinformation, scams.
That's unsettling.
It is. But just like criminals can use AI, so can law enforcement. It's a tool, remember?
Right. So it really is a digital arms race.
Exactly. And we're seeing that already with cryptocurrency. We talked about Bitcoin being used on the dark web, right? While governments are trying to find ways to track those transactions to prevent illegal activities.
So it's like a chess game, with each side trying to outmaneuver the other.
Absolutely. But it's not all about technology. Regulation is a huge factor too. Governments are trying to figure out how to regulate the dark web. Some want stricter laws, others think too much regulation will stifle freedom of speech.
It's a tough balancing act.
It is, and it raises the question, how do you effectively regulate something that's designed to be hidden and anonymous?
That's a good question.
Some experts think that education and cooperation are key. Teaching people about the risks, encouraging ethical behavior online.
So kind of like building a culture of responsible use?
Exactly. It's about empowering users to make smart choices rather than just trying to police them, and investing in research and development to create tools that can help us navigate the dark web safely.
So it's a multifaceted approach.
It has to be. The future of the dark web really depends on technology, regulation, and our own choices as users.
It's kind of overwhelming when you think about it that way.
I know, it's a complex landscape, constantly changing. But one thing's for sure, the dark web is here to stay, and its impact on our lives is only going to grow.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've spent what feels like hours going over the dark web. What it is, how to get there, who's there. But what I really want to know is, where is all this going? What's next for this, shadowy corner of the internet?
It's the question, right? The dark web is constantly evolving, just like everything else online. What will it look like in the future? It's a question everyone is asking.
Yeah, from the cybersecurity experts to, just regular people.
Exactly. I mean, it's almost impossible to predict, like trying to forecast the weather,
Right. Always changing.
But we can look at some of the kind of trends and make some educated guesses. One thing's for sure, the dark web isn't going away.
So it's not just a fad.
Nope. And it's likely to become even more, sophisticated, even harder to, track.
What do you mean by more sophisticated?
Think about artificial intelligence, AI. It's already being used to create deepfakes, fake videos that look real. Imagine that tech being used on the dark web for misinformation, create really believable scams.
That's frightening.
It is. But it's like that double-edged sword thing. Just like criminals can use it, so can law enforcement.
Right, so it's a tool.
Exactly. We're already seeing this play out with cryptocurrency. We've talked about Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, as the currency of choice for the dark web.
Right, but governments and financial institutions are developing ways to track these transactions to stop the illegal stuff.
So it's like an arms race, everyone trying to stay ahead.
Exactly. And then there's the whole issue of regulation. Governments around the world are, trying to figure out how to regulate the dark web.
That makes sense. It's got to be a top priority for them.
It is, but it's super tough.
Yeah, if the dark web is so hard to track, how do they even begin to, regulate it?
That's the million-dollar question. It's a huge challenge. Some experts think, that instead of just trying to shut down the dark web, that focusing on education and cooperation is the way to go.
Interesting. So teaching people about the dangers and promoting ethical behavior.
Yeah, exactly. It's like trying to create a kind of culture of digital citizenship, where people understand their rights and responsibilities online.
I like that.
And of course, investing in research and development to create new tools and tech that can help us navigate the dark web more safely.
So it's this mix of individual responsibility and advancements in tech.
Right, and all of it influenced by how governments choose to regulate it. The future of the dark web is this combination of factors.
It's so complex.
It is. It's always changing, but the dark web is here to stay. And its influence on, all of us is only going to grow.
Well, this has been an incredible journey, I have to say. We've covered so much ground, learned about its history, how it all works, and of course the people who use it, for better or for worse.
And as we've seen, the dark web is, in a lot of ways, a reflection of ourselves, both the good and the bad. It's this place where those lines get blurry and where what's real and what's not is, often hard to tell.
So as we wrap up our deep dive, what's the takeaway for our listeners?
I think the dark web is this incredibly powerful tool, and just like any tool, it can be used for good or bad. It's our responsibility to, learn about it, to understand the potential, and to use our knowledge to make the internet a safer, more ethical space for everyone.
Well said. Thank you for guiding us through this fascinating and sometimes kind of creepy world.
My pleasure.
To all our listeners out there, stay curious, stay informed, and as always, happy diving.